How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? And welcome back to another episode of The Tim Show. I want to start this episode out by saying I do apologize. I was going to upload a video yesterday, but I ended up working. I had to go and help out where I work, and when I got home, I was really tired, and I just didn't have the strength to do a podcast. So I do apologize, but to make it up for you guys, I'm doing an episode today, and I am going to try my best to give you guys an episode sometime on Saturday. If not, there will be, I promise you, there will be an episode coming out on Sunday. So I do apologize for that. Please forgive me. But without further ado, I think it's time that we dive back into the world of Sword Art Online with a brand new story arc in the series. We are now in the Fairy Dance arc. Yes, this is Light Novel 3 Sword Art Online Fairy Dance. Fairy Dance is a 2-book story arc that continues where Kirito had left off at the ending of the first novel after he escaped Aincrad in the world of SAO. And now we get to see what is going on now. And just like with all my other reviews, I will be trying to avoid as much major spoilers as possible, and then just kind of going over what you can expect in the story itself, what kind of things that kind of happen in the story, give you my opinions on what I think about it, and then I will wrap up with a grade. So yes, we are now on Light Novel 3, the beginning of the Fairy Dance arc. So let's go ahead and get started, where I will now read you guys what you can expect out of this book from the back of it. So let's get started. Kirito has escaped Sword Art Online, the forbidden VR MMORPG of death, and returned to reality. He heads off to find his game partner and lover, Asuna Yuki, but Asuna never made it back from the nightmare. Lost and desperate, Kirito's only clue to her virtual whereabouts is a mysterious screenshot of Asuna as a fairy trapped in a giant bird cage? His conclusion? She must be trapped within the new high-powered VR MMORPG Alfheim Online. Now Kirito must plunge into the world of ALO, where players are fairies who fly gracefully through the air. So it looks like at the ending of the very first novel, where Kirito had escaped Aincrad, he is back living in the world of reality. But for Asuna is still trapped within the virtual world. And now I will kind of jump ahead into the plot details. So again, if you don't want to be spoiled, please do not watch this video. Please either watch the anime or read the book itself. So let's get started. So Kirito has been out of Aincrad for about a couple months, I believe. We get to see a little bit of his normal routine being back in reality. Not by much. The anime kind of does a little bit of it, but we don't really get to see much of it. But Kirito is still struggling to adjust to being back to reality. And as we learn a little bit about himself, we then find out that Asuna is still trapped inside some virtual world. We don't know why. Kirito thinks it might be SAO or just something might be wrong. But we then learn that Asuna is being held at a certain hospital in Japan, and Kirito goes to meet her every now and then and checks up on her and makes sure that she's okay. And in this story, we are introduced to a character that is briefly mentioned in the previous 2 novels. We meet Kirito's little sister, who is called Suguha Kirigaya, because as you guys know, Kirito's real name is Kazuto Kirigaya, so now we have Sugu Kirigaya. And if you guys want to know who she is the character on the bottom right picture on my thumbnail. That is her. And she is really happy that her older brother is back with her, because she really missed him. She wasn't sure if he was ever going to get out of the game. And in the anime and the show, we get some brief little flashbacks of what was going on in Suguha's head, as her brother essentially just went off into this game and didn't come back for like a few years. And we notice that Suguha is, how can I say this? You know what? I'm gonna keep that a spoiler. I'm gonna keep that. I'm not gonna say that spoiler because I think it'll be a little bit more shocking to when you guys actually see it. But nevertheless, Kirito is now reunited with his family, and one day he goes to see Asuna, and he then ends up running into Asuna's father. And Asuna's father is very happy that Kirito is coming by to visit his daughter because he knows how much that he cares about her. And then we're introduced to, pardon my French here, asshole number one, Nobuyuki Sugo. Ugh, I hate this guy. Anyway, Sugo is someone who works with Asuna's father in the real world, and Kirito gets introduced to him. And then we then learn, after Asuna's father steps away in the hospital, that Sugo has... He's a bad guy. That's all I'm gonna say. Because I will like to say this now. If there's... When it comes to very horrible things that go on, like some like the little things that go on in this series and story that I don't feel comfortable talking about, I'm just gonna I'll let you guys experience it for yourself, but just please know that I think it is absolutely wrong and disturbing, and I still don't get why the author does this, but I'm going to move past that. I'm actually going to get to like the main points and not try to freak you guys out. So Sugo has some hidden means. He tells Kirito that he is the one that is keeping Asuna alive by trapping her somewhere else. And he then tells Kirito about what happened to the development company that developed SAO, that they were shut down, and now Sugo, who runs Asuna's father's R&D department, is now working on his own type of, I guess you can say, game engine for, the new VR games, which now comes into play of Alfheim Online, which is a new VR MMO RPG game. So Sugo, I have to say Suguha and Sugo, otherwise I'm going to get the characters mixed up. Sugo then tells Kirito that he is going to marry Asuna because it will make him part of Asuna's family, and then he'll be pretty much unstoppable. And since Asuna is asleep, she really has no choice in the matter. But Asuna's parents think that it's a good thing because they see Sugo as part of the family, and they think it'll be a good things that will happen to their family later on. But Kirito knows that he is sleazy, he is a scum, and he knows that he should not be anywhere near her. And then Sugo just kind of just makes some threats saying that, enjoy your time with Asuna because this is the last time you're ever going to see her, and if I see you anywhere near her or the Yuki family again, I will take action. And then he pretty much leaves. We learn his motives. He's an asshole. And, what was it? It's right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, he threatens Kirito. He's going to marry Asuna. Bad guy. Okay. Moving on. So Kirito comes home, and he thinks to himself that this is it. He's never going to see Asuna again, and his life is just... But then Suguha comes into the room and tries to calm Kirito down and says that no matter what, it's going to be okay. You'll still find a way to save Asuna no matter what. And so Kirito wakes up the next morning and receives a email from one of his friends at SAO named Egil. And Egil sends him a picture of Asuna in a birdcage in a different type of virtual world. So Kirito goes up to meet with Egil and finds out that Asuna is being trapped in a new video game called Alfheim Online, being developed by the same company that Sugo works for. Well, works at, because he's the head guy. So Kirito vows to himself that he's going to dive into Alfheim Online and do whatever it takes to rescue Asuna. And that's where our story mainly goes into with this whole first half of the Fairy Dance arc. So Kirito now is in Alfheim Online. It is a video game where it's very similar to SAO, but except in this game's case, there is now magic and you can fly and you're a fairy. Hence the title. I won't say it again. And as Kirito comes back to the virtual world, he then runs into a new character in the series called Leafa, a mysterious character who we'll find out more of later on. But Kirito doesn't know anything about Alfheim Online, and he begs Leafa for any assistance that can help him get to this place that he believes that Asuna is being kept at, which is called the World Tree, which is at the center of the entire world of Alfheim Online. And apparently Asuna is at the top of the World Tree, which is unreachable to players unless he conquers the secret challenge and gets there. So he teams up with Leafa, and they travel all throughout the different areas of Alfheim Online in order to try and find Asuna. But the thing is that Kirito just explains to Leafa that, and in case you don't know, Leafa is the person in the left side picture with the blonde hair. As far as Leafa knows, Kirito is just trying to get to the World Tree so he can possibly gain the power for unlimited flight, because it says in the legend of the game that if you can conquer the World Tree, you can have unlimited flight. Because the players in this game can fly, but they can only fly for a limited time. So then they begin their adventure, and they encounter a whole bunch of new characters along the way, and Kirito and Leafa start to bond. But Leafa has no idea that Kirito is actually looking for Asuna. She just thinks that he is basically on this journey to be able to just make it to the World Tree. But for Kirito, we know that the only thing that's on his mind is getting to Asuna. Because I believe, I could be wrong about this, so someone, if I am wrong, who's a big SAO fan, please correct me in the comments below. I believe that Kirito only has either a week or 2 weeks until Asuna's supposed wedding. So that's how much time that he has. And the one thing that is very unique about the fairy dance arc is that there are different type of races of fairies in this game, all representing different colors. And as we kind of like shift our way to the ending of this story itself, because like I said, this is a two book arc. Kirito is in a situation where he needs to unite several races in order to become stronger and realize that, hey, we can be friends here. We don't have to fight. We can, come together. And our story ends up ending with Kirito fighting one of the head generals of a particular race and trying to establish peace. And that's essentially where the first book in the fairy dance arc stops. And there is still more to go, but we won't be covering that until we get to the next book, which is going to be volume 4. That is the finale of the fairy dance arc. So now that I've kind of covered the general story of this and hiding as much spoilers as I possibly can, now let's go into what exactly I think of this new story arc and this new grand adventure for Kirito and everyone else. Honestly, to me personally, because here's the thing, guys. This story arc, especially from the books and from the anime, is not really well received. A lot of people didn't like it. And I have to admit, when I first got to this arc while watching the anime, I was actually a little upset because I thought that the entire gist of the show was Kirito and his friends conquering all 100 floors of Aincrad. But that wasn't really the case, no. So now we move on to something totally different. And I think personally for what it is a breath of fresh air because now we get to see more of what Kirito is like in reality. We get introduced to some great new characters, except for Sugo. He's an asshole. And now this whole fairy dance arc is pretty much a race to save Asuna, so that way she does not have to get married to Sugo, and so that way she can wake up. So yes, it is a race against the clock, but I think it is done in the best way, because just like with the original story with Aincrad, every single episode, every chapter was very heart-pounding, very dramatic, and very awesome to read. And Fairy Dance, in a way, is still the same thing. I don't think there's a lot more emotion involved because, again, now we are in a video game where players can die. Because the only thing that is really of importance in this story is basically finding and getting to Asuna and getting her back on her feet before the time ends and Kirito won't be able to save her anymore. And personally, I kind of like those types of stories where, race against the clock, you have to save the girl. I generally like that story, those types of stories. And if that may not be your thing, then you may not be a big fan of it. But for where this book starts, it's still a great new addition to the series itself. It's a great arc. It takes some new ideas, takes a little bit of risks, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next volume when I cover the ending of the Fairy Dance arc. But I see it as a breath of fresh air and something that really, what's the right? More, we get to see. We don't really see in every single episode like deep relationship issues. It's more kind of like we get introduced and create stronger bonds with these characters more than we thought. And that's what Fairy Dance does, especially with the characters of Suguha and Leafa, who actually end up becoming fan favorites. A lot of people do like both of these characters in the series, and I think it's a great. I think it's a great introduction. I don't. I think it. I think it nearly hits the mark of being just as good as Aincrad, but then Aincrad had a little bit of bigger stakes considering what the surrounding was. Like there's a very serious stake in this book, but then again though it's kind of like I just don't see it as dramatic as Aincrad was, especially with how they did it. But it's still an enjoyable read. I don't think it's near perfection, but I think it is of that scale of the very first book and the whole Aincrad story together. Especially because the thing that I didn't really mention in this review is that there are, again, I think there's a lot more humor in the Fairy Dance arc. There's a lot more humor, a lot more funny jokes. But I will say this, when the emotional stuff hits, it hits hard. But I think in terms of this first book, it's just kind of, okay, I get it, but we're still kind of building up to that. So I'm not going to give the first book in the Fairy Dance arc an A+. I'm going to give it a B+. Just because we kind of have some build up, but we know where it's going. It has great buildup, but there's really only a little bit of emotional impact in the beginning of the story. But once we get to the final book in the Fairy Dance arc, that's when we're really going to be going out big. And I'll be talking about a lot more stuff there because of what goes on in that story. And I would say that will probably be the next video we talk about. Until I can think of anything else to truly talk about, you guys can expect probably the next podcast video to be about the 4th volume in the Sword Art Online series and the finale to the Fairy Dance arc. And then after that, we've got a whole nother new arc to talk about. Because like I said before in the past, guys, in the beginning, most of the story arcs in this series are mostly just 2 books. We still have about, let me see here. We've got another 2-book arc, and then we have a book with multiple arcs, and a book with 1 arc and whatnot, but it may sound confusing. But, you know, we're not going to get to my favorite arc until way later on. But that's just how, like, the authors did this in the beginning, how most of these arcs were only, like, 2 books. But yeah, that's what I'm going to give the 3rd volume, Sword Art Online Fairy Dance, a B+. It's got the stakes. It introduces a lot of great characters, but the emotion doesn't hit you big until later on, and we'll talk about that next time. So thank you all so much for watching. I am sorry that I couldn't get a video out yesterday, but I had to go to work, and I was really tired afterwards, so please forgive me, and expect the next episode to arrive very, very soon. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like this video. Leave a comment if there's anything you guys would want me to talk about. Share it with your friends. And thank you so much for watching, and have a good one, guys.